The blood on Elena Jackson's hands belonged to the last child she would ever heal among her people. And as she stood over the small grave marker fashioned from desert stones, she understood that everything she had been was now buried beneath the unforgiving New Mexico earth. It was 1878, and the Apache bands that had raised her, taught her the sacred healing ways, and given her purpose were scattered like autumn leaves across a territory that no longer wanted them, hunted by soldiers who saw no difference between warrior and healer, between man and woman, between guilty and innocent. Elena was 22 years old, alone for the first time in her life, and walking north through scrubland with nothing but the leather medicine bag her grandmother had given her, and the clothes she wore, both stained with the dust of flight and the memory of fire. She had been walking for 3 days when the fever started, her body finally surrendering to the exhaustion and dehydration that her mind had been fighting. The sun was merciless overhead, and Elena knew the signs well enough from treating others. Her vision blurred at the edges, her steps became unsteady, and the rational part of her brain that understood medicine and healing whispered that she needed water, shade, and rest immediately. Or she would die out here where no one would find her, where her bones would bleach white under this endless sky. She stumbled toward a cluster of rocks that promised shadow, her legs giving out beneath her just as she reached them, and the last thing she saw before darkness took her was a rider in the distance, moving toward her with purpose. Bennett Bridges had been checking his northern fence line when he spotted the figure collapse near the rock formation that marked the edge of his property. He was a practical man, hardened by 5 years of ranching alone in this harsh country, but he was not so far gone that he could ignore someone in obvious distress. At 28, Bennett had seen enough death during the range wars and enough suffering during the drought years that he recognized emergency when he saw it. He spurred his horse forward, covering the distance quickly, and when he reached the fallen figure he realized it was a young woman, Apache by her dress, and the distinctive medicine bag clutched in her hand even in unconsciousness. Bennett's first instinct was caution, his second was compassion, and his third was action. He dismounted swiftly, kneeling beside her and pressing his fingers to her neck to find a pulse. It was there, rapid and thready, and her skin burned with fever. He uncorked his canteen and wet his handkerchief, pressing it to her forehead and lips, trying to get some moisture into her. She did not wake, but her lips parted slightly, and he managed to dribble a small amount of water into her mouth. There was no question in his mind about what to do next. Whatever tensions existed between settlers and Apache in this territory, whatever fears people harbored, Bennett could not leave an unconscious woman to die in the desert heat. He lifted her carefully, surprised by how light she was, how fragile she felt in his arms despite the obvious strength in her frame. Her medicine bag fell from her grip, and he tucked it into his saddlebag before mounting his horse with practiced ease, settling her across his lap. She stirred slightly against his chest, murmuring something in Apache that he did not understand, and he tightened his arms around her reassuringly. The ride back to his ranch house took 30 minutes, and during that entire time, Bennett found himself studying the woman's face, the delicate bone structure, the long dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, the signs of recent hardship etched around her eyes even in unconsciousness. His ranch house was modest, a sturdy timber structure he had built himself with a wide porch and a view of the mountain range to the west. Bennett carried the woman inside, laying her on his own bed since it was the only one in the house, and immediately set about treating her fever. He had learned basic medical care out of necessity, the way most ranchers did when the nearest doctor was 2 days' ride away. He stripped off her dusty outer garments with clinical efficiency, leaving her in her underthings for propriety's sake, and began bathing her with cool water to bring down the fever. He got more water into her, patient and persistent, and checked her over for injuries. There were no obvious wounds, just the toll of exposure and exhaustion. Her feet were blistered from walking, her lips cracked from dehydration, her skin burned from too much sun. Bennett dressed her feet with salve and wrapped them in clean bandages, covered her with a light sheet, and then settled into the chair beside the bed to keep watch. It was strange having another person in his house after so long alone. The silence he had grown accustomed to seemed different now, expectant rather than empty. Elena woke in fragments, her consciousness returning in pieces that did not quite fit together at first. She was cool when she should have been burning, soft when she should have been lying on hard ground, sheltered when she expected open sky. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim interior of a room she did not recognize. Wooden walls, a window with curtains, furniture that spoke of permanence rather than the temporary dwellings of her people. And beside the bed, a man sat watching her with eyes the color of summer sky, concern written clearly across his sun-weathered face. Elena tried to sit up, instinct telling her to flee, but her body would not cooperate. The man raised his hands in a gesture of peace, speaking in a low, calm voice. "Easy now. You collapsed from heatstroke about 12 hours ago. I brought you here to my ranch. You are safe. I mean you no harm." She stared at him, processing his words, assessing the situation with the quick judgment that had kept her alive. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark blonde hair and the rough hands of someone who worked with them daily. His face was honest, she thought, and there was genuine concern in his expression rather than the hatred or fear she had seen too often recently. Her medicine bag sat on the table beside the bed where he must have placed it, untouched. That was significant. "Water," she managed, her voice rough from disuse and thirst. He moved immediately, pouring fresh water from a pitcher into a tin cup and helping her sit up enough to drink without choking. Elena drank carefully, aware of her body's needs, not too much too fast. When she finished, he set the cup aside and settled back in his chair, maintaining a respectful distance. "My name is Bennett Bridges," he said. "This is my ranch, about 15 miles south of Cimarron in northern New Mexico territory. You are welcome to stay here as long as you need to recover." I ask nothing in return. Elena studied him for a long moment before responding. "I am Elena Jackson. I am a healer. My people are gone." The simple words carried layers of meaning, and she saw understanding flash across Bennett's face. He nodded slowly. "I am sorry for your loss. You are welcome here. I live alone, have for 5 years since I started this ranch. It gets lonely if I am honest. I would appreciate the company if you choose to stay beyond recovering your strength." There was something in the way he said it, a vulnerability beneath the practical offer, that caught Elena's attention. This was a man who understood loneliness, who recognized it in others. She had been trained to read people as part of her healing work, to see beneath surfaces, and what she saw in Bennett Bridges was decency and a bone-deep weariness that matched her own. "Why did you help me?" she asked directly. "Because you needed help," he answered, as though it were the simplest thing in the world. "I could not leave you to die out there. Many would have. I am not many." Elena absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. She had no tribe left, no people, no purpose. The soldiers had scattered the bands, killed those who resisted, imprisoned others, forced the rest onto reservations far from their ancestral lands. She had been away gathering rare, healing plants when the attack came, and when she returned there was nothing but ash and blood and silence. She had tried to find survivors, had traveled from camp to camp only to find them all empty or destroyed. She was the last of her particular band, the last keeper of the healing knowledge her grandmother had passed down. And now this white rancher offered her shelter, asked nothing, and looked at her like she was a person rather than a problem. "I will stay until I am healed," she said carefully. "Then I will decide." "Fair enough," Bennett agreed, and something in his expression suggested that her survival itself was enough for him. Over the next week, Elena recovered her strength under Bennett's careful, respectful care. He gave her his bed and slept on a bedroll in the main room, cooked simple but nourishing meals, and gave her space while remaining available if she needed anything. He brought her medicine bag to her, and she spent hours checking her supplies, relieved that most of her herbs and remedies had survived her flight. Bennett watched with obvious curiosity but did not pry, respecting the sacred nature of healing knowledge. As Elena grew stronger, she began to observe her reluctant host more closely. Bennett Bridges was a man of routine and discipline. He rose before dawn to tend his cattle and horses, worked through the day maintaining fences and structures, and spent his evenings reading by lamplight or repairing equipment. He was competent and self-sufficient, but there was a heaviness about him that spoke of old grief. The house, while clean and functional, had no personal touches, no photographs or decorations, nothing that suggested attachment to place or past. On the 8th day, Elena was strong enough to leave the bed and move around the house. She found Bennett on the porch at sunset, staring out at the darkening mountains, and she joined him there. They sat in silence for a while, the evening air cooling the day's heat, before she spoke. "You have been alone for 5 years." "Yes." "Why?" Bennett considered the question, his jaw working slightly as he chose his words. "I came west after the war, fought for the Union, saw things no man should see. My family was back in Ohio, but I could not return to that life, could not pretend to be the person I was before. So I came here, claimed this land, built this ranch. I thought hard work and solitude would heal whatever was broken in me." He paused, glancing at her. "I was wrong. It just made me hollow." Elena understood that kind of wound, the invisible damage that lingers after violence and loss. "I know that feeling. Since I lost my people, I have been walking without purpose. A healer needs people to heal. Without them, I am just someone who knows plant names." "That is not nothing," Bennett said firmly. "Knowledge is valuable. Purpose can be found again. Can it?" Elena asked, not challenging but genuinely wondering. "I hope so," he admitted. "Otherwise, what are we doing out here?" The honesty between them was unexpected and profound. Two broken people, different in background and experience but similar in their fundamental loneliness, recognizing something essential in each other. Elena felt the first stirring of something she had thought died with her tribe, the possibility of connection. "I have a proposition," Bennett said suddenly, turning to face her fully. "You need a home, a place to practice your healing. I need help on this ranch, and if I am being honest, I need a reason to care about something beyond just surviving day to day. Stay here. Be my family. I will protect you, provide for you, give you a safe place to rebuild your life. In return, all I ask is your company and whatever help you can offer with the ranch. Nothing more. You would have your own space, your independence, your freedom. Just please consider making this your home." Elena's breath caught at the directness of the offer. This was not a proposal of marriage or employment, but something stranger and more profound. He was offering kinship without blood, family without obligation, protection without ownership. It was extraordinarily generous and equally risky for both of them. If word got out that he was sheltering an Apache woman, there could be consequences. For her, Accepting meant trusting this white stranger with her life and future. "You would face trouble for this," she said quietly. "People would not understand." "Let them not understand," Bennett replied with unexpected fierceness. "I spent 5 years alone rather than compromise on what I believe is right. I will not start now. If you stay as my family under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." Elena felt tears prick her eyes, the first she had allowed herself since the destruction of her camp. This man, this stranger, was offering her what soldiers and settlers had taken away: belonging, safety, value. He was offering to be her tribe when she had none left. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" Bennett reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and gently took her hand. His palm was calloused and warm, his grip steady. "Because from the moment I saw you collapsed in the desert, something in me woke up. Something I thought was dead. I cannot explain it better than that. You reminded me that there are things worth protecting, worth fighting for. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe it makes me foolish. But I meant what I said. Stay. Be my family. Let me protect you. We can figure out the rest as we go." Elena looked at their joined hands, at this man who had saved her life and asked nothing in return, who offered everything and demanded no payment. She thought of her grandmother, who had always said that the spirits guided healers to where they were needed most. Perhaps she had been guided here not to heal others, but to find her own healing. Perhaps Bennett needed her as much as she needed him. "I will stay," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion churning inside her. "I will be your family, Bennett Bridges, and you will be mine." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise, transforming his weathered features into something almost boyish. He squeezed her hand gently and then released it, respect and joy mingled in his expression. "Thank you, Elena. I promise you will not regret this." As the stars emerged overhead and the night sounds of the desert surrounded them, Elena felt the first fragile threads of hope beginning to weave themselves around her heart. She had lost everything, but perhaps in losing, she had also been freed to find something new. Something different but no less valuable. A family of choice rather than blood. A home built on respect rather than obligation. And a man whose loneliness matched her own, whose strength might become hers, whose future might intertwine with hers in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The next morning, Bennett showed Elena around the ranch properly, explaining his operation and what needed to be done daily. He had about 200 head of cattle, 24 horses, chickens for eggs, and a large vegetable garden that was struggling due to his lack of horticultural knowledge. Elena walked through the garden with growing interest, identifying the plants and immediately diagnosing the problems with soil drainage and pest control. "You have planted these too close together," she explained, kneeling beside a row of struggling tomato plants. "They compete for nutrients. And these beans need stakes to climb. The soil is too compact here. It needs to be loosened and amended with compost." Bennett crouched beside her, listening intently. "I am better with animals than plants," he admitted. "Could you take over the garden?" "I would be grateful for vegetables that actually grow." "Yes," Elena said, already mentally planning improvements. "And I can expand it. There are medicinal plants I need to cultivate, herbs that grow well in this climate. If we are successful, I could eventually provide healing services to the nearby settlements." "I would like that," Bennett said warmly. "This ranch becoming known for good beef and good medicine both. We would make quite a team." The word "we" settled between them comfortably, and Elena realized she liked the sound of it. She had always been part of a "we" with her tribe, and its absence had been almost as painful as the loss itself. Now Bennett was offering to build a new "we," just the two of them for now, but no less valid. Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Bennett handled the livestock and heavy labor, while Elena took over the garden, the cooking, and began organizing the house in ways that made it feel more like a home. She hung herbs to dry from the ceiling beams, arranged wildflowers in jars on the table, and added small touches that softened the masculine austerity Bennett had lived with. He noticed every change and thanked her for each one, his appreciation genuine and unhidden. They talked in the evenings, sharing stories of their pasts. Bennett spoke of his childhood in Ohio, the middle son of a farmer who had expected all his boys to stay and work the family land. He described the war, though sparingly and with visible difficulty, explaining how he had seen too much death and caused too much of it himself. He had come west seeking emptiness, space to escape his memories, but had found only loneliness instead. Elena shared her own history, describing her Apache upbringing, the rich culture of her people, the healing traditions passed down through generations of women. She spoke of her grandmother, the most powerful healer in their band, who had recognized Elena's gift early and trained her rigorously. She described the seasonal migrations, the ceremonies, the close-knit community that had been her entire world. And she spoke, haltingly and with pain still raw, of finding that world destroyed, of being the last one left, of wandering without purpose until fever nearly claimed her. "I am glad the fever did not take you," Bennett said quietly after she finished. "I am glad I was riding that fence line that day. I do not believe much in fate, but I am grateful for whatever chance brought you to my land." "As am I," Elena admitted. "You saved my life twice, Bennett. Once from the fever, and once from the despair that was killing me more slowly." Their eyes met in the lamplight, and something passed between them that was not quite named but deeply felt. It was not yet love, but it was the foundation on which love could be built: respect, gratitude, understanding, and a growing affection that surprised them both with its intensity. The first real test of their new arrangement came when Bennett needed to drive a small herd to market in Cimarron. It was a 3-day trip there and back, and he was reluctant to leave Elena alone despite her assurances that she would be fine. His worry was not about her capability but about her safety, and Elena recognized the protective instinct for what it was: genuine care rather than paternalism. "I know how to defend myself," she told him as he prepared to leave. "And I will not leave the ranch boundaries. Go sell your cattle, return safely. I will be here when you get back." Bennett hesitated, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a revolver, offering it to her handle first. "Do you know how to use one of these?" Elena took the weapon, checked the chamber with practiced ease, and nodded. "My people knew guns well. I am a healer, but I am also Apache. I can protect myself if needed." Something in Bennett's expression shifted at that, a deeper respect entering his eyes. "I should have known. I will be back in 3 days. If I am not back in 4, ride for town and find the sheriff. His name is Garrett and he is a decent man." "I will," Elena promised. "Now go before you miss the market day entirely." She stood on the porch and watched him ride out with the small herd, his dogs working the cattle with efficient skill. When he turned back to wave before disappearing over the ridge, she waved back, surprised by how much she already missed his presence. The ranch felt empty without him, too quiet, too still. She realized with a start that in just a few weeks Bennett Bridges had become essential to her sense of home and safety. The understanding was both comforting and frightening. Elena kept herself busy during his absence, working in the garden, preserving vegetables, and exploring the land around the immediate ranch. She found several useful medicinal plants growing wild and transplanted them to a dedicated healing garden she was creating near the house. She also took the time to deep clean the house, scrubbing floors and washing windows, imposing order and care on a space that had been merely functional for too long. On the second night, riders approached the ranch near dusk. Elena saw them from a distance and felt her stomach tighten with apprehension. 3 men, rough-looking, moving with the casual arrogance of those who expected no resistance. She retreated into the house, positioned herself where she could see through the window, and kept Bennett's revolver close at hand. The men dismounted and approached the porch. One of them, tall with a scarred face and cruel eyes, called out, "Hello, the house. We are looking for Bennett Bridges. His cattle are on our range and we are here to settle accounts." Elena did not believe him for a moment. These were not honest ranchers with a legitimate dispute. These were the kind of men who preyed on isolated homesteads, who took what they wanted by force. She had seen their type before, had treated victims of their violence. She kept silent, hoping they would assume no one was home, but the scarred man was persistent. "We know someone is here. Saw smoke from the chimney. Come out and talk, or we will come in and look around." Elena made a quick decision. She opened the door but stayed inside, the revolver held steady and visible. "Bennett Bridges is not here. He will return in 2 days. You can state your business to me or you can leave. Those are your only choices." The 3 men exchanged looks, surprise and then calculation crossing their faces. The scarred man smiled unpleasantly. "An Indian woman. How interesting. Bridges keeping an Apache squaw now, is he? That is illegal, you know, against territorial law. We could report him, have him arrested, have you put on a reservation where you belong." Elena felt rage surge through her at the slur and the threat, but she kept her voice level and cold. "I am Bennett's family, here under his protection. You are trespassing on his land. I am giving you one chance to leave peacefully." "Or what?" Another man sneered. "You will shoot us." "1 woman against 3 men, if necessary," Elena said calmly, and raised the revolver to sight down its barrel at the scarred man's chest. Her hand was perfectly steady, her expression absolute. "I am a healer, but I am also Apache. I have seen enough death that 3 more will not trouble my sleep. Leave now." Something in her eyes convinced them she was not bluffing. The scarred man raised his hands mockingly but stepped back. "We will go, but we will be back when Bridges returns. He will answer for harboring a savage. You tell him that." "I will tell him that cowards came while he was away and threatened his home," Elena replied. "Now go, before I decide your presence is threat enough to justify shooting." They left, but slowly, making sure she understood it was their choice, not her threat, that moved them. Elena watched until they were out of sight, then quickly barred the door and windows, her heart pounding. She knew they would be back, and likely with more men. Bennett needed to be warned. She considered riding to meet him but rejected it. She had promised to stay on the ranch and she would not break her word. Besides, traveling alone would make her more vulnerable than staying in the defensible house. She would wait, remain vigilant, and tell Bennett everything when he returned. Then they would decide together how to handle it. Bennett returned on the afternoon of the 3rd day, tired but satisfied with his sales. His pleasure at homecoming was obvious as he dismounted and bounded up the porch steps, calling her name. Elena met him at the door, relief flooding through her at his safe return, but her expression must have conveyed worry because he immediately sobered. What happened? She told him everything, sparing no details about the 3 men and their threats. Bennett listened with growing anger, his jaw clenching, his hands balling into fists. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment, visibly controlling his temper. "Those would be the Crane brothers and their cousin," he said finally. "They have a small spread west of here, but they make most of their money rustling and intimidating smaller ranchers into selling cheap. They have been pressuring me to sell for 2 years. I have refused. This is a new tactic, going after you to get at me. What will we do?" Elena asked. Though we deliberate. Bennett met her eyes, and she saw the protective fury there tempered by calculation. "We will be ready for them. And we will make it clear that you are under my protection, that this is your home as much as mine, and that anyone who threatens you will answer to me. But first, I need to ask you something." "Yes. Are you sorry you stayed? If you want to leave, go somewhere safer, I will understand. I will give you money, supplies, safe passage. I will not hold you to our agreement if it puts you in danger." Elena felt warmth spread through her chest at his words, at the selflessness of the offer. But her answer was immediate and certain. "I am not leaving. This is my home now. You are my family. We face this together." The smile Bennett gave her was brilliant with relief and something deeper, something that made Elena's heart skip. "Together," he agreed. "Then we will make sure the Cranes understand that attacking one of us means attacking both of us, and we are not people to be trifled with." Over the next week, Bennett took several strategic actions. He rode to the neighboring ranches and spoke with the few other homesteaders in the area, men he had developed cautious friendships with over the years. He explained the situation honestly, introduced them to Elena, and asked for their support if the Cranes made good on their threats. Most agreed readily, having their own grievances with the Crane brothers. Bennett also made a trip to Cimarron and spoke with Sheriff Garrett, formally registering Elena as a member of his household and making it clear that any action against her would be considered an action against him. Sheriff Garrett, a weathered man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness, listened carefully and then gave Bennett unexpected advice. "You should marry her, Bridges. I can see there is something between you two, whether you have admitted it yet or not. And a wife has more legal protection than a ward or employee. The laws around Indians are murky and often used to excuse violence. But a wife, even an Apache wife, that is clearer. Any man who harms her harms your legal spouse, and that is a crime I can prosecute without territorial politics getting involved." Bennett returned to the ranch with Garrett's words echoing in his mind. He had been trying not to examine his feelings for Elena too closely, not wanting to complicate their new arrangement or make her uncomfortable. But the sheriff was right about the practical benefits, and if Bennett was honest with himself, the idea of Elena as his wife was not at all unwelcome. In fact, the more he considered it, the more right it felt. He found Elena in her healing garden, carefully tending a plant he did not recognize. She looked up as he approached, wiping dirt from her hands, and smiled in greeting. That smile did something to Bennett's chest, made his heart feel too large for his ribs. "Elena, I need to talk to you about something important." Her expression grew serious and she stood, giving him her full attention. "What is it?" Bennett took a deep breath. Sheriff Garrett suggested something that makes legal sense, but also carries personal implications. He suggested that I marry you to give you more legal protection. As my wife, no one could claim you are here illegally or that I am harboring you. You would have clear legal status and rights. It would also send a message to the Cranes and anyone else who might threaten you." He paused, gathering his courage. "But I do not want to offer this just as a legal arrangement. The truth is, Elena, I have come to care for you deeply these past weeks. You make this place feel like a home instead of just a house. You make me remember what it is like to care about tomorrow. I think I am falling in love with you, and I hope you might feel something similar for me." Elena stared at him, her dark eyes wide and unreadable. Bennett's heart hammered as he waited for her response, suddenly terrified that he had misread everything, that he had made her uncomfortable, that he would lose her now. "Bennett," she said slowly, carefully, I did not think I would ever love anyone again. After losing my people, my heart felt dead. But you have awakened something in me that I thought was gone forever. You have given me a home, a purpose, a reason to heal myself instead of just existing. I care for you more than I have words to express. If you are asking me to marry you because you truly want me as your wife, not just to protect me, then my answer is yes. Joy surged through Bennett so powerfully that he laughed out loud, stepping forward and taking her hands in his. I want you as my wife, Elena. I want you beside me for all the years we have. I want to build a life with you, a real family. Will you marry me? Yes, she said again, smiling through sudden tears. Yes, I will marry you, Bennett Bridges. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her close, and Elena wrapped her arms around him in return. They stood together in her healing garden as the sun dipped toward the western mountains. Two lonely people who had found each other against all odds, who had chosen to build family and love from the wreckage of their separate pasts. Their wedding took place 2 weeks later in the small church in Cimarron. Sheriff Garrett stood as Bennett's witness, and a kindly widow named Mrs. Harper, who ran the general store, stood as Elena's. The ceremony was simple and brief, but deeply meaningful. When Bennett slipped a simple gold band on Elena's finger and promised to love and protect her all his days, she felt something settle into place in her soul. When she promised to stand beside him through whatever came, to be his family and his home, she meant it with every fiber of her being. They held a small reception at the ranch afterward, inviting the neighboring ranchers and a few townspeople who had shown them kindness. It was a modest gathering, but the warmth and good wishes were genuine. Elena wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Harper had helped her choose, and Bennett wore his best suit, and they danced together in the yard as someone played fiddle and others clapped along. As night fell and their guests departed, Bennett and Elena found themselves alone together in a new way. They had been living chastely under one roof, but now they were married, and the dynamic had shifted. There was awkwardness, but also anticipation as they stood in the bedroom that was now truly theirs together. "Are you nervous?" Bennett asked softly, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "A little," Elena admitted. "But not afraid. I trust you, Bennett." "I will be gentle," he promised. "We will go slowly. If you want to stop at any point, you need only say so." Elena stepped closer, placing her palm against his chest and feeling his heart beating fast beneath her hand. "I do not want to stop. I want to be fully your wife. I want this bond between us to be complete." Bennett kissed her then, tender and careful, and Elena kissed him back with growing confidence. They undressed each other slowly, learning each other's bodies with reverence and care. When they finally came together, it was with love and trust woven through every touch, every whispered endearment. Bennett was true to his word, patient and gentle, ensuring her pleasure matched his own. And afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Elena felt a peace she had not known since childhood, the absolute security of being loved and cherished. "I love you," Bennett murmured into her hair. "My wife, my family, my heart." "I love you too," Elena whispered back. "You gave me a reason to live when I had none. You gave me a home when I was lost. I will love you until my last breath." They fell asleep in each other's arms, two souls no longer lonely, two lives now permanently intertwined. The Crane brothers made their move 3 weeks after the wedding. They came in force this time, 6 men instead of 3, riding onto Bennett's land with weapons visible and intentions clear. But they found Bennett and Elena ready, along with 4 neighboring ranchers who had positioned themselves strategically around the property in response to Bennett's request for backup. The scarred Crane brother, whose name was Tucker, pulled up short when he realized the situation. He glared at Bennett, who stood on his porch with Elena beside him, both armed and calm. "This is not your fight," Tucker called to the other ranchers. "This is between us and Bridges." "Bennett is our neighbor and our friend," replied Jacob Morrison, one of the ranchers. "You threaten him, you threaten all of us. We are tired of your family pushing people around. You want a fight, you will get one, but you will not win it." Tucker's eyes darted around, calculating odds he did not like. 6 against 10 were bad numbers, especially when half his men were clearly nervous about the situation. His gaze landed on Elena with pure hatred. "This is about that Apache woman. Bridges, you are making enemies protecting her. She is not worth it." Bennett's voice when he responded was colder than Elena had ever heard it. "My wife is worth more than you could ever understand, Crane. And if you or anyone else threatens her again, I will not bother with the sheriff. I will handle it myself, and you will not like how I handle things. Now get off my land and do not come back. This is your only warning." The standoff lasted another tense minute before Tucker finally wheeled his horse around and spurred it viciously, his men following. Bennett and Elena watched them disappear, relief mixing with residual adrenaline. "That was terrifying," Elena admitted quietly. "But we stood together," Bennett replied, taking her hand. "And we had help. That is what community means, Elena. We are not alone anymore, either of us." The neighboring ranchers stayed for a meal afterward, and the gathering evolved into something of a celebration. Elena served food and listened to the men discuss forming a more formal association to protect their interests against larger outfits trying to squeeze them out. Bennett was nominated as one of the leaders, his fairness and courage respected by the group. Elena felt proud watching him, seeing how naturally he commanded respect while remaining humble and approachable. After everyone left, Bennett pulled Elena into his arms on the porch as stars emerged overhead. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what? For staying. For marrying me. For making me part of something larger than myself again. I was half alive before you, Elena. Now I feel fully human again." Elena hugged him tighter. "We healed each other, I think. You needed purpose beyond survival. I needed a reason to believe in tomorrow. We gave each other those gifts." "Yes," Bennett agreed, kissing the top of her head. "We did, and we will keep giving them every day for as long as we live." As autumn turned to winter in 1878, Bennett and Elena's ranch thrived. The cattle were healthy, the horses were breeding well, and Elena's gardens produced abundantly. She also began quietly offering healing services to the community, treating injuries and illnesses that people brought to her. Her skill became known throughout the area, and even those who might have been prejudiced against an Apache woman found their attitudes changing when she saved a life or eased suffering. There was an incident in early December that crystallized Elena's place in the community. A neighboring rancher's son, a boy of 7 named Thomas, fell through ice while playing near a frozen creek. He was pulled out quickly but developed a severe fever and lung congestion that the town doctor could not resolve. The family was desperate, and Mrs. Morrison suggested they seek Elena's help, despite the father's initial reluctance. Elena went to their homestead and examined the boy, recognizing the signs of pneumonia immediately. She prepared a complex treatment combining Apache healing knowledge with practical nursing care, staying at the family's home for 3 days and nights to monitor Thomas constantly. She used steam inhalation with specific herbs, applied poultices to his chest, and prepared teas that helped break up the congestion. Bennett came by daily with supplies and support, his presence steadying both Elena and the worried family. On the 4th day, Thomas's fever broke and his breathing eased. He would recover completely. His parents wept with relief and gratitude, and the father, who had resisted seeking Elena's help, took her hands and thanked her with tears streaming down his face. Word of the miracle spread rapidly through the scattered homesteading community, and after that, Elena's status as a healer was unquestioned and deeply respected. Winter passed peacefully, the ranch insulated by snow and the warmth Bennett and Elena created together. They spent long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other, planning improvements for the spring, and simply enjoying being together. Their physical relationship deepened and matured, passion balanced by tenderness, desire intertwined with genuine affection. They learned each other's rhythms and preferences, found joy in giving pleasure as much as receiving it. In late February, Elena realized she was pregnant. The signs were unmistakable to someone with her training, and she felt a complex swirl of emotions. Joy at the prospect of bringing new life into the world, creating family with Bennett. Fear about the dangers of childbirth, especially in this isolated place. Hope that their child would grow up knowing safety and love rather than the violence and displacement that had defined her own later years. She told Bennett over dinner simply and directly, "I am carrying your child. The baby will come in early autumn." Bennett's fork clattered to his plate, his eyes going wide. For a moment he seemed unable to speak, and then a smile broke across his face so radiant that Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. He stood abruptly, came around the table, and dropped to his knees beside her chair, placing his hands gently on her still flat stomach. "A child," he breathed. "Our child. Elena, this is the greatest gift you could give me. Are you happy about this? Are you well?" "I am happy," she assured him, covering his hands with her own. "And I am healthy. The pregnancy feels strong and right. I will need help as I grow larger and less able to do heavy work, but I can monitor my own condition and I know what to do." "You will have all the help you need," Bennett promised fiercely. "I will hire someone to assist with the house and garden. You will rest and focus on staying healthy. And I will be with you every step of the way. It could be dangerous," Elena warned, needing him to understand. "Many women die in childbirth, and I will be bringing Apache knowledge to the process, which some might question." "I trust you completely," Bennett said. "You are the most skilled healer I have ever known. If anyone can do this safely, it is you, and I will support whatever choices you make about the birth." Elena felt love swell in her chest so powerfully it was almost painful. This man, who had been a stranger less than a year ago, was now her husband, the father of her child, her entire world. "I love you, Bennett Bridges. I love you more than words can express." "And I love you, Elena Bridges," he replied, using her married name with obvious pleasure. "You and our child. My family. Everything I never thought I would have and everything I will protect with my last breath." Spring arrived with a riot of wildflowers and new life. Elena's pregnancy progressed normally, her healer's knowledge allowing her to monitor every development with confidence. Bennett was attentive to the point of being overprotective, constantly worried about her overdoing things, insisting she rest more than she felt necessary. It was sweet and sometimes frustrating, but Elena appreciated the care behind his concern. True to his word, Bennett hired a young widow named Sarah to help with household tasks and garden work. Sarah was grateful for the employment, and the company, having lost her husband to a ranching accident the previous year, and struggled to maintain her small homestead alone. She and Elena developed a genuine friendship, and Sarah's presence eased Bennett's worry about Elena being alone during the day while he worked. As Elena's belly swelled with their child, Bennett became almost reverent in his affection, constantly touching the growing mound, talking to the baby, expressing his wonder at the miracle of life. They had long conversations about what kind of parents they wanted to be, how they would raise their child to honor both Apache and white traditions, how they would protect their child from the prejudices that existed while also preparing them to navigate a complex world. "Our child will be mixed," Elena said one evening as they sat together, Bennett's hand resting on her belly. "Not fully Apache, not fully white. That may be difficult. Our child will be loved," Bennett countered firmly, "and they will be strong because they will have the best of both worlds. They will have your healing knowledge, your connection to the land and traditions that sustained your people for generations. And they will have the legal protections and opportunities that come with being my child, with bearing my name. We will teach them to be proud of all parts of their heritage." "You make it sound simple," Elena said, though she smiled. "It will not be simple," Bennett acknowledged. "But love rarely is. We will face challenges. People will say ignorant things. Our child may struggle with their identity. But they will do so knowing they are wanted, treasured, and supported absolutely. That is more than many children have, regardless of their heritage." Elena leaned into her husband's solid warmth, grateful beyond measure for his perspective and strength. "You will be a wonderful father." "I hope so," Bennett said quietly. "I want to be better than my own father, who loved conditionally and demanded conformity. I want our children to know they are loved simply for existing, that they never have to earn my affection or approval." "They will know," Elena promised. "We will both make sure of that." Summer brought intense heat, and the challenge of Elena's advancing pregnancy in less than comfortable conditions. She moved more slowly, tired more easily, and found certain tasks impossible. Bennett and Sarah picked up the slack without complaint, and the ranch continued to function smoothly. The neighboring ranchers checked in regularly, bringing gifts for the baby and offering help with anything needed. One particularly hot afternoon in late July, riders approached the ranch. Elena, resting in the shade of the porch, tensed until she recognized Sheriff Garrett in the lead. He was accompanied by two men she did not know, both wearing badges that marked them as federal marshals. Bennett emerged from the barn, his expression cautious as he approached the group. "Sheriff." "Marshals. What brings you out here?" Garrett dismounted with a weary expression. "Official business, I am afraid. These marshals are conducting a survey of Apache individuals living outside reservations in the territory. They need to speak with Mrs. Bridges." Elena felt cold fear wash over her despite the heat. This was the nightmare scenario she had dreaded, the government coming to force her onto a reservation, to tear her away from the life she had built. Bennett moved immediately to stand beside her, his hand finding hers and gripping tight. "My wife is a legal resident of this territory and a United States citizen through marriage," Bennett said firmly. "She is not subject to relocation." One of the marshals, a thin man with cold eyes, consulted a ledger. "Elena Jackson, formerly of the members' Apache band." "There is no record of her placement on a reservation. That makes her subject to federal oversight regarding Indian affairs." "She is Elena Bridges now," Bennett corrected, his voice hard. "My wife, living legally on my property, and she is 7 months pregnant with my child." "You will not take her anywhere." The second marshal, older and with a kinder face, raised a hand placatingly. "We are not here to take anyone anywhere, Mr. Bridges. We are simply conducting a census and ensuring that Apache individuals are accounted for and living in appropriate circumstances. Your wife's situation is unusual but appears to be legitimate. We need to document her status for federal records." "Then document it and leave," Bennett said tersely. Sheriff Garrett intervened. "Bennett, let them do their job. The sooner they get what they need, the sooner they leave and the less trouble there will be. Mrs. Bridges, I know you are frightened, but I will not let anything happen to you. You have my word." Elena trusted Garrett, so she forced herself to calm and answered the marshal's questions. Where was she born? What band had she belonged to? How had she come to be in New Mexico territory? When had she married Bennett? Was she coerced into the marriage? Did she intend to remain on the ranch? The questions were invasive and upsetting, but Elena answered truthfully, her hand never leaving Bennett's. Finally, the thin marshal made notes in his ledger and nodded curtly. "Your status is documented. You are registered as Elena Bridges, residing legally as the spouse of Bennett Bridges on this property. You are not subject to relocation as long as these circumstances remain unchanged." "They will not change," Bennett said flatly. "My wife stays with me, always." The marshals departed, and Sheriff Garrett lingered briefly. "I am sorry about that, Mrs. Bridges. The federal government is cracking down on any Apache not on reservations, trying to account for everyone. Your marriage protects you, but I wanted to be present to make sure they understood that clearly. You should have no further trouble." "Thank you, Sheriff," Elena said, her voice shaky. "I appreciate you coming." After Garrett left, Elena collapsed into Bennett's arms, trembling with delayed reaction. Bennett held her close, his own heart pounding, fury and fear warring in his chest. "I will not let them take you. Ever. I do not care what laws they pass or what orders they give. You are my wife, this is your home, and I will fight anyone who tries to change that." "I know," Elena whispered. "I know, my love. I am sorry I brought this danger to you." "You brought nothing but joy to my life," Bennett corrected fiercely. "The danger comes from ignorant people with ignorant laws. Not from you. Never from you." They held each other on the porch as the sun descended, both shaken but their commitment to each other only strengthened by the threat. That night, as they lay together in bed, Bennett's arms wrapped protectively around Elena and their unborn child. He made a silent vow that he would never let anyone or anything tear apart the family they had created. August arrived with oppressive heat, and Elena's pregnancy reaching its final weeks. She was uncomfortable constantly, sleeping poorly, moving with difficulty. But her healer's knowledge told her that everything was progressing normally, that the baby was positioned correctly, that her body was preparing for the work ahead. She had assisted with enough births in her Apache community to know what to expect, but experiencing it herself was different. Sarah proved invaluable during this time, helping Elena with everything from bathing to walking to preparing the birthing supplies they would need. Bennett was a bundle of nervous energy, constantly hovering, unable to focus on ranch work for worrying about Elena. She found his anxiety both touching and slightly exasperating. "Women have been giving birth since the beginning of time," she reminded him gently when he hovered for the third time in an hour. "I am trained in this. I know what to do." "I know," Bennett said, running his hand through his hair anxiously. "But you are my wife, and that is my child. I cannot help but worry." Elena softened, pulling him down to sit beside her. "I need you to be strong when the time comes. I need you to trust me and follow my instructions. Labor will be difficult and possibly frightening for you to witness, but I need you calm and present. Can you do that for me?" Bennett took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, I will be whatever you need me to be. I promise." Elena's labor began on a September evening, starting as mild cramping that gradually intensified over several hours. She had been preparing mentally for this moment, drawing on her training and the experiences she had witnessed. She instructed Sarah to begin heating water and preparing the supplies while she walked slowly around the house, using movement to help the process along. Bennett stayed close, his face pale but his hands steady as he helped her however she directed. As the contractions grew stronger and closer together, Elena retreated to their bedroom where she had prepared everything necessary. She had Sarah help her into a comfortable birthing position, kneeling with support, a position her Apache teachers had favored as giving the mother more control and working with gravity. The labor was long and intense, lasting through the night and into the early morning. Bennett stayed with Elena the entire time, holding her hands when she needed to squeeze something, supporting her weight when she needed to change positions, offering water and encouragement constantly. He was terrified watching her in pain, but he kept his fear contained, projecting only calm support as she had asked. Elena drew on deep reserves of strength, using breathing techniques and mental focus to manage the pain. She had watched her grandmother guide women through this process dozens of times, had assisted with births herself. She knew each stage, what was normal and what was not, when to push and when to rest. And she knew that despite the difficulty, she and the baby were both doing well. As dawn light began filtering through the windows, Elena felt the final overwhelming urge to push. She bore down with all her remaining strength, Sarah supporting her from behind and Bennett kneeling in front of her, his eyes wide and awestruck. With one final monumental effort, their child entered the world, and Elena caught the small, slippery body in her own hands with Sarah's help. "A boy," Elena gasped, exhausted and exultant. "Bennett, we have a son." The baby let out a strong, healthy cry, and Elena saw tears streaming down Bennett's face as he looked at his child for the first time. She cleaned the baby quickly with practiced efficiency, while Sarah dealt with the afterbirth and helped her settle into a more comfortable position. Then she placed the squalling infant in Bennett's arms and watched her strong rancher husband transform into something tender and vulnerable. "He is perfect," Bennett whispered, his voice breaking. "Elena, he is absolutely perfect. Thank you for this gift." Elena smiled, exhausted beyond measure but filled with profound joy. "He is our gift, our family. What should we name him?" They had discussed names but not settled on anything. Bennett looked down at his son, studying the small face that was a perfect blend of Elena's delicate features and his own stronger lines. The baby had a shock of dark hair, and when his eyes opened briefly, they were dark like his mother's. "Benjamin," Bennett said suddenly. "After my grandfather, the one good man in my family, Benjamin Bridges. Does that name feel right to you?" "Benjamin," Elena repeated, tasting the name. "Yes, it feels right. Strong but kind. Benjamin Bridges, son of Elena and Bennett, born in September of 1879. Welcome to the world, little one." Sarah helped Elena clean up and get settled into bed with little Benjamin nursing at her breast. Bennett refused to leave their side, sitting beside the bed and watching mother and child with an expression of such complete contentment that Elena felt tears prick her eyes. They had both been so broken when they found each other, and now look what they had created: new life, pure potential, a future neither had believed possible a year ago. "I love you," Bennett said softly, reaching out to stroke Elena's hair and trace one finger gently down Benjamin's tiny cheek. "Both of you, my family, everything I will ever need." "We love you too," Elena replied, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "You gave me a reason to live, Bennett. Now we have given each other a reason to thrive. Whatever comes, we face it together." "Together," Bennett agreed, and sealed the promise with a gentle kiss. The weeks following Benjamin's birth were a blur of sleepless nights, constant feedings, and adjusting to the demands of a newborn. Bennett proved to be a devoted father, taking on every task Elena would allow, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with a crying baby in the middle of the night, constantly checking that both mother and child were well. His tenderness with their tiny son revealed depths of gentleness that his rough rancher exterior had hidden. Elena recovered well from the birth, her healer's knowledge allowing her to care for her own body as expertly as she had managed the pregnancy. Within a few weeks, she was back to light activity, though Bennett insisted she not overdo things. Sarah stayed on to help, having become essentially part of the family, and her assistance allowed Elena to rest and focus on Benjamin while still managing her healing work and garden. The neighboring families came to meet Benjamin, bringing gifts and good wishes. Even those who had initially been skeptical about Bennett marrying an Apache woman were won over by the sight of the healthy, beautiful baby boy. Children were universally loved in this harsh territory, where infant mortality was high and every new life was precious. Benjamin became something of a shared treasure in their small community, and Elena felt the last threads of her isolation dissolve entirely. Tucker Crane and his brothers stayed away, apparently having gotten the message that Bennett was not a man to be trifled with, and that he had the support of too many neighbors to be easily intimidated. There were occasional reports of them causing trouble elsewhere in the territory, but they left Bennett's ranch alone, and that was all Elena cared about. As Benjamin grew from newborn to infant, his personality began to emerge. He was a cheerful baby, quick to smile and laugh, curious about everything. He had his mother's dark eyes and his father's sturdy build, a perfect combination of both parents. Bennett spent hours playing with his son, telling him stories, singing terrible off-key lullabies that somehow always worked. Elena watched them together and felt a contentment so profound it was almost spiritual. This, she realized, was what healing truly meant. Not just treating illness but creating wholeness, building something beautiful from broken pieces. Winter came again, Benjamin's first, and the ranch settled into the quiet rhythm of cold months. Elena taught Bennett some of her healing knowledge, showing him which plants had which properties, how to prepare basic remedies. He was a surprisingly good student, his practical mind grasping the principles quickly. In turn, he taught her more about ranching operations, about breeding and markets and land management. They were building something together that was more than either could have created alone, a partnership in the truest sense. On a cold January evening in 1880, as they sat together by the fire with Benjamin sleeping peacefully in his cradle nearby, Bennett took Elena's hand and spoke quietly. "A year and a half ago, I was alone and half dead inside. I thought I would live out my days in isolation, working this ranch until I was too old to continue, and then I would just fade away. I had no hope for anything different. I was the same," Elena said. "Wandering without purpose, believing I had lost everything that mattered. But then I found you," Bennett continued. "Or you found me, or maybe we found each other, and everything changed. You gave me a reason to care about tomorrow. You gave me a family when I thought I would always be alone. You gave me Benjamin, who is the greatest joy I have ever known." He paused, his voice thickening with emotion. "I want you to know that you saved my life as surely as I saved yours in that desert. We saved each other, Elena." Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She simply squeezed his hand and leaned her head against his shoulder, letting the warmth of the fire and the safety of his presence wrap around her like a blanket. "I am grateful every single day," she finally managed. "Grateful that you found me, that you offered me home and family, that you loved me when I thought I would never be loved again. You are the best man I have ever known, Bennett Bridges, and I will love you for all the days of my life." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the fire, listening to their son's gentle breathing, existing in a moment of perfect peace. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing the ranch in white silence. But inside, there was warmth and love, and the unshakable knowledge that they had created something that would endure whatever challenges came their way. The years flowed onward with the steady rhythm of seasons and the growth of their family. Elena gave birth to a daughter they named Emily in 1881, and another son they named Elijah in 1883. Each birth was easier than the last, Elena's confidence and Bennett's support making the process less frightening even as the joy remained constant. Their children grew healthy and strong, beloved not just by their parents, but by the entire community that had come to see the Bridges family as an integral part of their scattered settlement. Bennett's ranch prospered as his reputation for quality cattle and honest dealing spread. He became a respected figure in the regional ranching community, known as much for his fairness as his skill. Elena's healing work expanded until she was the primary medical provider for their entire area, treating everything from broken bones to difficult births to chronic illnesses. People traveled for days to seek her help, and she turned no one away regardless of their ability to pay. Some paid with money, others with goods or labor, and some paid with nothing but gratitude, which Elena accepted as readily as gold. The house expanded to accommodate their growing family, Bennett adding rooms and improvements each year. What had been a bare bachelor dwelling became a warm, welcoming home filled with children's laughter, the smell of Elena's cooking and medicinal herbs, and the accumulated treasures of family life. Photographs in frames, drawings by small hands, toys scattered across floors, the beautiful chaos of a house truly lived in. Their children grew up knowing they were loved unconditionally, that their mixed heritage was something to be proud of rather than hidden. Elena taught them Apache stories and traditions, the healing knowledge she had inherited, the importance of respecting the land and all living things. Bennett taught them ranching skills, reading and arithmetic, and the values of honesty and hard work. Together, they raised children who were confident in their identity and secure in their place in the world. There were challenges, of course. Benjamin occasionally faced cruel comments from other children about his Apache heritage, though he learned to handle such ignorance with his mother's grace and his father's steady strength. Emily, as she grew older, struggled sometimes with being caught between two worlds, not fully Apache and not fully white. Elijah, the baby, had an easier time of it, benefiting from his older siblings' experiences and his parents' increasing confidence in their parenting approach. But through all the challenges, the core of their family remained unshakable. Bennett and Elena's love for each other only deepened over the years, maturing from the passionate intensity of new love into something richer and more complex. They had built a life together that honored both their pasts while creating something entirely new. They had chosen to be family when blood and circumstance had left them both alone, and that choice had blossomed into something neither could have imagined in those early days. Tucker Crane and his brothers eventually left the territory entirely after a failed attempt to rustle from a larger ranch, resulted in one brother dead, and the others wanted by the law. Sheriff Garrett personally came to tell Bennett the news, knowing how much trouble the Cranes had caused the Bridges family. "They would have come after you eventually," Garrett said. "If you had not stood your ground early, if you had not had the support of your neighbors, they might have succeeded in driving you out. You did the right thing, Bridges, protecting your wife and your home." "I did the only thing I could do," Bennett replied. "Elena is my family. This ranch is our home. I would have died before I let anyone take that from us." Garrett looked at Elena, who was working in her garden with young Emily helping, and smiled. "You two are quite a story, the lonely rancher and the Apache healer who had no tribe left. You created a new tribe, just the two of you at first, And now look what you have built. Children, community, respect. You are a testament to what is possible when people choose love over fear. As the 1880s progressed, the Wild West began to change. More settlers arrived. Territories became states. The lawlessness of earlier decades gradually gave way to more established order. The Apache Wars wound down as more bands were forced onto reservations or fled to Mexico. Elena grieved for her people, for the loss of their traditional way of life, but she also recognized that she had been impossibly fortunate. She had found safety, love, and purpose when so many others had found only suffering and displacement. She maintained connections with other Apache individuals and families scattered throughout the region, providing healing services and preserving cultural knowledge however she could. Her children grew up knowing they were part of something larger, that their Apache heritage connected them to a proud and enduring people who had survived centuries of change and hardship. Elena made sure they understood that, while their circumstances were privileged compared to many, they had a responsibility to honor their heritage and help others when possible. Bennett supported all of this wholeheartedly, understanding that Elena's Apache identity was not something separate from their family, but woven into its very fabric. He attended ceremonies when invited, learned some of the language, and made sure his children understood and respected their mother's culture. In turn, Elena fully embraced her role as a rancher's wife, becoming expert in aspects of ranch management and serving as Bennett's full partner in all business decisions. Their 20th wedding anniversary arrived in 1898, and their children, now grown or nearly so, organized a celebration that brought together nearly 100 people from throughout the region. Benjamin was 18 and already managing much of the ranch's day-to-day operations alongside his father. Emily was 16, showing strong healing talents and learning everything her mother could teach her. Elijah was 14, still finding his path but showing interest in law and education. As Bennett and Elena stood together receiving congratulations from friends and neighbors, as they watched their children laughing with others their age, as they surveyed the ranch that had grown from Bennett's lonely outpost into a thriving family operation, they both felt the same profound gratitude. 20 years, Elena said softly, her hand in Bennett's. From the day you found me dying in the desert to this moment, it seems like yesterday and also like forever. Best 20 years of my life, Bennett replied, his hair now silver at the temples but his eyes still as blue and clear as the first day she had seen him. You gave me everything, Elena, family, purpose, love. I was half a man before you, now I am complete. We completed each other, Elena corrected gently. I was lost and you gave me a home. You were lonely and I gave you a family. We both needed saving and we saved each other. That is what makes this work, what has always made it work. Bennett pulled her close and kissed her softly, not caring that half the territory was watching. After 20 years together, some things were beyond his ability to resist, and kissing his wife whenever he wanted was definitely one of them. The assembled guests cheered and applauded, and their children laughed with embarrassed affection at their parents' open display. As the celebration continued around them, as the sun set over the New Mexico mountains in a blaze of gold and crimson, Bennett and Elena Bridges stood together and looked forward to whatever years remained to them. They had built something lasting from the wreckage of their separate pasts. They had created family where none existed. They had loved fiercely and completely through every challenge and triumph. The Apache healer had no tribe left, but she had found a new one in the most unexpected place. The lonely rancher had said, "Be my family. I will protect you always," and he had kept that promise every single day since. And in keeping it, in building their life together, they had discovered that love could heal the deepest wounds, that family could be chosen as well as born, and that sometimes salvation came riding out of the desert sun in the form of exactly what you needed, exactly when you needed it most. Their story was not the Wild West of dime novels and tall tales. It was quieter, more personal, but no less significant. Two broken people who found each other and chose to build something beautiful. A love story written in sagebrush and mountain sage, in ranch work and healing herbs, in the laughter of children and the quiet companionship of long years together. A story that would endure long after they were gone, carried forward by their children and grandchildren, a testament to the simple truth that love, real love, can overcome almost anything. As Bennett held Elena close and felt her heart beating in time with his own, as he looked out at the family and community they had created together, he knew with absolute certainty that finding her in the desert that day 20 years ago had been the luckiest moment of his entire life. And Elena, resting against her husband's solid strength, surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor and love, knew with equal certainty that Bennett Bridges had saved her life in every way a person can be saved. They had been lost, both of them, wandering in their own deserts. And they had found each other, built a home together, created a family, loved with everything they had, and in doing so they had proved that even in the harsh realities of the Wild West, even amid violence and prejudice and loss, love could still triumph. Family could still be forged. Hope could still flourish. The sun set completely, stars emerging overhead in the vast New Mexico sky. The celebration continued, full of warmth and laughter and the simple joy of community. And Bennett and Elena Bridges, once strangers brought together by chance or fate or providence, now partners in all things, stood together beneath those stars, and silently gave thanks for the incredible gift of having found each other, for the family they had built, and for every precious day of the life they shared. Their story had a happy ending, but it was not an ending at all. It was a beginning that kept renewing itself with each sunrise, each child's laugh, each quiet evening spent together. It was a love that would endure as long as there were children, to pass down the tale of the Apache healer, who had lost everything, and the lonely rancher who gave her a new world. A tale of protection and promise, of family forged from friendship, of two souls who refused to give up even when they had every reason to do so. And in the end, that refusal, that choice to keep living and loving and building despite everything, that was the truest victory of all.